It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you. This is I find this stuff to be fun now that my kids are raised and I'm an empty nester, sort of, I guess, what you call it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the beauty of this process here is that there's so many good, wonderful people out there doing so many things, and you're doing an extraordinary amount of things out there. And I'm looking forward to getting into it. Before we do that, I want to know,
Mhm.
we survived a pandemic. I know we're getting tired of talking about COVID, but the response everywhere was different. Florida was different from
Yeah,
Kansas City and LA.
yeah.
So ultimately, how did you survive that time period, and what revelatory things happened that changed the course of your life?
Oh, you want to hear that now, or you want to talk about it?
Sure, just yeah, just kind of your synopsis of getting through that.
Um,
And yeah,
yeah, for us, I mean, to be quite honest, at that point, my kids were, my younger kids, I've got four, were being homeschooled already, and they were in high school. Not much change on that front. I will say though, our what really impacted our lives, and unfortunately it was a negative way, and it came out okay, but it was tough, was social media. A child that really got involved in social media, which and we can talk more about that, but it was just I really was caught in a place where I thought I was keeping up on everything and I wasn't.
yeah,
And it that really affected our lives in a not so good way at all.
yeah.
So, as far as the what went on around the state, I mean, I feel from what I heard about other places that Florida probably wasn't affected as much.
Right.
I mean, were we doing our stuff? Yes. But we do have a governor that was like, listen, we can't let the economy sink here. Like, we got to keep moving. And so stores stayed open, but for the most part, right? There were some that, didn't feel the same way and didn't. But so yeah, it was definitely a difference. But for me personally, when I have to look back, that's the biggest thing that I saw from kids not being able to get together and them being a little more dove into the internet and social media.
And social media is already dangerous for young people, especially young
Absolutely.
girls. It's such a
Absolutely.
destructive force. So then you amplify that with not being able to go anywhere, and your only real outlet to the world is this place that's already fake and plastic and not genuine and quite degrading and mean. Yeah, I mean, and for us, we had all of these decades on the planet.
Right.
We lived in an era where we didn't have any of this stuff, but they didn't, and they're just trying to see the daylight and have some level. But a lot of that is just so terrible. I mean, a lot of it.
It is, and it starts with the algorithm, and it was different about when you and I were younger because you seemed like you were probably around the same age.
Yeah.
What it seemed like was, well, we had to number one find out about it from somebody, right?
Uh-huh.
Unless you saw it on a commercial, which commercials were different. You probably didn't, or a magazine. But then even then, you had to go ask people about
Uh-huh.
it,
Uh-huh.
right? So now they just know more information, and unfortunately, if I search for a white crop top on social media or on Google or whatever, it's going to already plug me in as being most likely a teenage girl,
Yeah.
right? And so then it's going to feed me more of that. And
Yep.
anything I slow down on, and you know this, but anything I slow down on, even if it's a half a second more than that other thing, now I'm plugged into that algorithm. So what we ended up seeing was these kids are learning how to self harm themselves. They're learning how to hide things from their parents. They're learning all of these things that are literally, these are good kids that come from families. So it's not just my own kid, they come from real normal good families that aren't bad kids. They aren't looking for trouble, but
Right.
trouble's finding them, and then they're
Uh-huh.
curious, right? Because that's what we all are at that age. You're like, oh, I didn't know about this. And then you've got somebody on the other side. Unfortunately, not all of them were teenagers. Some of them were predators, adult predators, and they're saying, if your parents don't understand you, I do.
Yep.
I'm your friend. That's the stuff that unfortunately I saw. And I know it's maybe a different spin than what a lot of people may say about COVID, but that's what affected our family.
Yeah, the kids are just like a bunch of kittens, and it's like if you tell a cat, "Don't do this," stay away,
Oh
they're going to go right
yeah.
to it.
Exactly. And then they've got hundreds and thousands and millions literally
Yeah.
people on the internet that are and following these influencers that are giving them the, all right, that's a great job, you do that.
Uh-huh.
And then so those are your friends, those are your people, those were their people, because some kids are more social than others. So when you take that social part away, which is what happened during COVID, that's how they found their social people.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you're an inspiring entrepreneur and you're a force of transformational change. But to get to the root and essence of what you do in 2024, I want to put you in front of a bunch of grade schoolers, third graders. It's career
Mm-hmm.
day, and one of the kids is curious in the back of the room and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Mm-hmm.
answer him?
I would say that I remind people that what they think and feel about themselves is really absolutely all that matters. Because every single day, the outside world starts to affect us, right? It just piles on. And then I typically will describe things like when you're a baby and you get up and walk and you fall down, you don't look around and say, "Ooh, who saw that?" No, you just get up and you go again.
Yeah.
But you can, when you start putting that into relatable terms of, oh, so and so said this about me. Oh, and then, oh gosh, and I didn't do well on that. Oh, so you can see how it just piles on and piles on and piles
Mhm.
on. So that's what I do is I help people with feeling good. I call it self-perception, what you think and feel about yourself. And that's really the base of everything in our lives. So everything that I do, whether it's with my nonprofit or with the blogging site or with, my kids and whatever it is I'm doing, the book, whatever in life, that's what it stems from for me.
Yeah. I got remarried in 2019 and I was not familiar with the teenage girl brain. And I remember so many things that were so different, vastly different from boys. And I remember at one point I told my stepdaughter Jilly, the one thing that you have in this life that no one's going to be able to do anything to is your dream, and you have to protect it, which is what you're saying is that sense of self, that sense of who you are, you know?
Right.
And that's the thing, just like even with social media, all these dings and all these things that people can do to you, always protect that dream. That's the thing that's going to keep you grounded, and that's your hope.
I think that's absolutely true. And the one thing that I will say is so there's kind of a fine line between follow your heart and don't let anybody tell you you can't do anything and all of that. I get that. I'm 100% on board with it. However, let's think about teenagers.
Yeah,
Sometimes some of the dreams and the things they're coming up with, we got to have a little reality here,
sure, sure.
right? And
Yep,
say, hey, listen, you can't do that.
right.
You can't be that. You can't do that. Sorry.
Yeah,
And that's where I see that society as a whole and parenting, I want to say it's become harder because it kind of has because of social media. But yet I think that yes, following your dreams is one thing depending on the dream.
yeah,
I guess that's what I'm saying. And I hate
yeah.
to say that because some people don't really think that's a good thing to say. But I don't know. I've had experience now with kids trying to tell me things that
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I get it. I totally get what you're saying. It is the addendum to it because there are
Yeah.
addendums to things for sure. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
A movie star.
Okay. Did you
Uh-huh. It really was.
did you pursue acting?
No,
Okay.
no.
So,
And I honestly, and I was shy. I don't
yeah.
know why I had that dream. I really know what I have memories of. So my grandmother and my mom, they watched the soap opera. You remember soap operas?
Oh, yeah.
All My Children.
Yep.
They watched All My Children. So I knew about All My Children. I mean, you could come back 20 years later and watch All My Children and you still know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, Susan Lucci is there and she's, Erica. And so my dream was to be Erica's daughter
Yeah.
on because Susan Lucci, I'm half Italian, she has dark hair, dark eyebrows. I mean, I felt like I could fit that role.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
really what I wanted to be. So that's really when I started wanting to be. But I was a very shy person, very shy kid. And my mom put me into modeling. I'm not that tall either. You can't tell here, but I'm like 5'3", right? Just kind of, you know.
Sure.
And so it's not like I'm going to be out on a runway. I guess we still wear clothes. We could be, but
Yeah. Right.
So so she put me in modeling as kind of a self-confidence builder. And it wasn't just modeling like to be in print and stuff, but it was the class I took, it was a private class, and they basically taught you how to speak in front of people, which
Yeah.
I, now that I'm older and I look back, I mean, what a great thought, because honestly, it's kind of a joke now because my mom would say over the years, I mean, I'm 52 now, almost 53. But when I was younger, she'd be like, "Whew, sometimes I don't know if that was a good idea because you don't stop talking now." But and I thought that, so anyway, that's kind of what it melded into, is what this person had us do was we would go to events where we had to wear these outfits, and we had to go table to table and describe our outfits.
Ah,
And we
okay.
had to do, it's just a kind of a different way of
Yeah.
modeling.
Yeah.
However, it was really more learning people skills
Sure.
and learning how to talk in front of people and not be shy, because literally I was just very shy. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do in the third
Yeah.
grade. And then as I got a little bit older, I ended up actually, well, I had to get a job because I got pregnant at a young age. And I worked at Mayo Clinic. So those are the people in the US probably know about Mayo Clinic. And I just worked my way up the ladder there. And that was back before HIPAA, right? So
Yeah.
they taught you how to do everything a nurse could do.
Yeah.
You just did all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then I became a supervisor, and then I got into fitness. So yeah, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for over 20 years.
So, what were these early seeds that were planted into you to be an entrepreneur and to have this heart and empathy to help people? How did all of that kind of get get
Yeah,
planted and become you?
I think part of it is I was born that way. Like I really think that's my personality. However, my parents always helped people.
Yeah.
They were always helping people. I mean, even though they were hard workers, my parents both worked, and I mean, I had myself and my sister, and we always had everything we needed, but we weren't like, and they always helped people, whether it was my dad always making sure everybody, if somebody needed their car fixed. And he was a grocery store manager. So it wasn't like he was a mechanic, but he's really good at what he does for
Yeah.
hobbies. And my mom always making sure that everybody had food, or if somebody didn't have a place to go for the holidays, they came to our house. So that's just kind of the environment I grew up in.
Yeah.
And it just felt right to me. And I mean, I don't know if that had something to do with it, but I live the same way now. My parents still live the same way now. And then, I did start a nonprofit with helping domestic abuse survivors and their children. And that stemmed from my mom growing up in a very abusive home.
Yeah.
And, my mom had me when she was 15.
Hmm.
My dad was 17. They're still together. They are just the most amazing people.
Yeah.
And, but my mom grew up in a home that my grandfather not only abused my grandmother, but all the kids. And we lived across the street from my grandparents when I was little. And I didn't understand this at first until I got older and then looked back. But she did that because she had siblings that were mine and my sister's age. And so she was protecting them,
Yeah.
right? She wanted to make sure that she was still there because there was a lot of kids in that family. My mom was in the middle, and she's a very caring heart. She just does. She takes care of people. And so as I kind of grew up with knowing that happened, even though they tried to keep it from us, but I knew that wasn't normal because I don't live that way across the street. People
Yeah.
aren't getting bruised over here. There's not fights going on. Like we're
Yeah.
not doing that over here.
Yeah.
So as it stuck with me, I started that nonprofit because I wondered if my grandmother had a place to go where nobody would judge her and that it was safe, would she have reached out and left?
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know because I mean, she passed away probably about 35 years ago
Yeah.
of a brain aneurysm, which they think was caused by, you can only get hit so many times. And she passed away in her early 50s.
Wow.
So, well, we'll never know that. However, and also back then, that was back in the day, right? As I'll
Right.
call it.
Yeah.
It was different. And if the
Mhm.
police showed up, my grandmother would be like, it's fine here. And my mom would say the kids were just like, it's not fine here.
Right.
Like, but that was the way it went. It was just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into, helping domestic abuse survivors and their children, because I know that children are so affected and it's not their choice,
Right.
meaning they're not choosing that relationship. So we got to get the adults help. And sometimes it starts with the kids. So,
Yeah, for sure. So, who's been kind of that hero, that inspiration for you in your work?
it's really been my parents.
Yeah.
I will say. And
Yeah.
even to this day, my dad was just here a few minutes ago. Which is the whole reason why I moved back to where I was originally from. I moved back because I wanted to be closer to my parents. And I think that I just have always had a lot of respect for them. And, being a parent, I have 4 kids. And until you're a parent, sometimes you don't understand why your parents did things, right?
Yeah.
My oldest is 33. I have 33, 30, 20, and 19. Those are the ages of my kids. And I
Yeah.
have 3 grandkids now too, 3 grandgirls. But I look back in those lessons, and sometimes they were hard lessons when you're like, oh, why are they doing this? I look back and I'm like, yeah, I mean, that is why I guess I would call them my hero, because they really made sure that my sister and I also had to feel consequences. They didn't bail us out all
Yeah.
the time. I
Right.
mean, they weren't going to let us fall so hard like that we couldn't get back up, but we fell.
Yeah.
They let us
Yeah.
fall. But I now looking back, I know they were always right there,
Yeah.
ready to cross that line.
Yeah.
But I think we learned a lot. And that helped me when I was raising my kids as well, is to remember, as hard as it is as a parent, and especially a mom, because I think we're more emotional, gosh, can we just save this? So I think I
Yeah.
would say, yeah, for sure they are.
So speaking of youth, if you had a dream tonight, you ran into the 16-year-old version of you. You could give that
Mm-hmm.
version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've
Mm-hmm.
accumulated. What advice would you impart?
I would say don't sweat the small stuff. The things you think you're going
Right.
to worry about, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard that from other people. It is so true. The
Yeah.
things you think you're going to worry about are not the things you're going to really worry about.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with our kids. And I try to remind young parents of this when they come to me and we're talking, although you have to live it sometimes. When you've got little kids, those things you're worried about with them are not the things that you're going to be worrying about when they're teenagers. It's
Uh-huh.
not those things. So don't waste your time on it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Make sure they're safe, but let it go.
Yeah. That's wisdom. So if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational or fascinating, spend some time with them. Who would that be?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question because it depends on right now where you are.
Yeah.
Can I say political stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, I actually think Donald Trump is a very good businessman,
Right.
and I would really like to talk to him about business.
Sure.
I
Sure.
really would,
Yeah.
because I love to hear people and hear what their thoughts are and how they came up with things, especially people that are older than me.
Yeah.
Because when we're younger and we're like, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
They don't know anything. They're like 50 years old. They know nothing, right? And now that I'm in my 50s,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I want every 70, 80, and 90-year-old person that
Sure.
I think, whether I'm looking at business or, maybe it's a whole different avenue. And I want to know how they live such a healthy life. How
Yeah.
did you live a healthy life? And then, maybe it wouldn't be the same choice. If it was, okay, it would be different people depending on what kind of answer that I'm looking for. But yes, we learn from our younger people, but gosh, I just love to talk to older people that I am inspired by. I used to
Yeah.
go to the gym. I say I used to go to the gym. I mean, I work out every day, but I have a gym at home now. And I would just be so inspired by these people
Yeah.
because I'd be looking at them and they're like 20 years older than me. And, there's the women over here, bicep curling with 30 pounds. I'm like, they're my size. I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you get in a good conversation. So,
Yeah, no, it is. It's amazing. And I think we need to tap into that more because they've been around
yeah,
longer. I mean,
right.
they know what's going on. They got it figured out, you know. And and that's the thing. Their brains are still up there, but we kind of just think that they're not there. They're not with it, but they are. Everything's
They
still
are.
going, you
And
know.
they are. And they've got, some of them are so sharp. I mean, even
Yeah.
my dad, for instance, I think I have to count how old I am and then add his age when
Right.
when they had me and to see how old he is.
Yeah.
But I know he's in his early 70s. Maybe he's even 70. But the wisdom that he has, because he's been through life and he's very fair. And I think it's really important for us to look at those people and ask. And plus, I think they like it,
Yeah.
right? Like I like it. My daughter, the one that has the 3 girls, she's always calling me and
Yeah.
we always talk about stuff because
Yeah.
I've been through it. Nothing's exactly the same, but I get exactly where you're coming from. And this is what I think about it now. So looking back, you can give that wisdom of, I probably wouldn't spend too much time on that.
Yeah.
Or yes, this is probably important enough that it's going to affect the child or yourself that, yeah, this is something worth spending time on
Yeah.
and making sure you do it right.
So let me ask you this. You're doing work that's helping to transform and shape people. But you also have to evolve as a human being yourself. What is that
Yeah.
collective energy every day for you to wake up, to do all of these things and to do it well?
Well, I do have a schedule and I love my schedule and I love my time. So even though now I'm an empty nester and none of my kids are at home, I still stick with the same schedule that I did when all my kids were younger, which was I always get up early. I always get up early before everybody else. So I'm up between 4 and 4:30, and I say 4 and 4:30 because sometimes I sleep in till 4:30.
Yeah,
And I don't even have to set an alarm anymore because my body just wakes up.
yeah,
But that is my time. So I go out and I do the gym. I love being in the gym first thing in the morning. I make sure that I don't really meditate. I guess you could call it that. I do it like while I'm working out. But I have certain things that I read. I listen first thing in the morning while I'm making my decaf coffee is I because I can't have caffeine like I used to. I don't know about you, but it just like makes me too anxious. It's not worth
yeah,
it. But I love coffee. I
yeah,
love the taste.
yeah,
So, but I put positive things in my ears, and that's how I run the day. That's how I
yeah,
run the day. The other thing is I choose what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Not that I'm not going to help everybody that I can. However, even with the nonprofit, if you're working with me one on one or working with one of our volunteers one on one, this is the way it's going to go.
yeah,
This is the way it's going to go. And we're looking at the best case scenario. We also want you to look forward, as I do for myself, as what would I do if nothing was holding me back? And that's the way I live my life. That is the way I live my life. Like I don't even say, and it just doesn't feel natural for me to say I'm going on vacation because I really am not. And I can say this now that I'm at the age that I am. I have created a life where I feel like I am on vacation all the time because, quite honestly, we all are. Even if you're working, you get to choose how you feel
yeah,
while you're there.
yeah,
So that's how I do it is I really make sure that I focus in on myself. I mean, I did write a book about self-perception and the makeover. I do that my own stuff every 6 months.
yeah,
Every 6 months, I go through 30 days. I'm a 30 dayer. I will go through it again and again and again because it's like going to the gym. We can't go for 2 weeks and be like, okay, I'm good with that for a year. Don't have to do that. We know it doesn't work. So I really believe a lot of it has to do with mindset and who we choose to surround ourselves with. I think that's key too.
it is. It totally is. So, aside from your family, of everything that you've done and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I am the proudest that I'm very fair with people and I give people chances, meaning I can see the best in people. I really am very proud of that. I'm very proud that when I look at somebody, no matter how detrimental their situation is or what they tell me, because you can only imagine the stories that I have heard over the years when you're dealing with domestic abuse survivors and their kids. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised anymore. And it's not always from somebody else, right? It's something that maybe they've done
Yeah,
that's, you know, that I see past that with people. I
yeah,
really do. And I'm proud of myself about that because I don't think a lot of people give people the chances they need. We all need chances.
yeah,
We all need chances
yeah,
because people do change. You hear that people say, well, people don't change. Well, I've seen that happen too, where people don't change.
yeah.
And then you have to have you be like, okay, listen, this is the line, and I've had to do that numerous times. But I am very proud of myself for that, and I think that really just took life. I don't think that's something maybe people have it a little bit innately in them, but I think in order to make sure you're not taken advantage of, and that you also have boundaries with that, I think that's a fine line. And I think that just takes life experience and dealing with in being in those situations. Just like we said, once you have, you're raising a child, no matter what the age, until you've done that, you don't know what you do in that situation.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family,
Mm-hmm.
friends, clients, everyone that gets your book, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your
Mm-hmm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am a very caring, nice person who does have boundaries. I think that I do what I feel is right. I know that I do what I feel is right. I don't do just because somebody else thinks it's right. If I feel it is right, I will do it. And that has taken years of, I probably started feeling this way more so in trusting it
Yeah.
in my mid to late 30s, where I started to really trust those feelings that were coming. Whereas, I would have used to question it and then, and then still feel about it. And now I don't. I mean, every decision I make is just full on, this is the right thing. I'm going to do it.
Well, when you're alive on this planet long enough, you just get to that point where your conviction just, it's right there.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't because I think as long as you know, and I know you can relate to this, you know you're a good person. You know morally you're doing what's right. Then that's what matters.
That's it.
That's really all that matters. That's
Yeah.
it.
You just got to
End
go
of it.
for it.
That's right. That's it.
I had a colleague tell me years ago, at the end of the day, if you can lay your head down on your pillow at night and be totally fine and fall right to sleep without worrying about it, you're fine. That's it. That's all you need to
Absolutely.
worry about.
100%. And I will say, I feel that way. And parents can relate to this. I'm sure the only times that I don't feel that way is if maybe there's something going on with one of my kids or
Yeah.
something, right? Then you're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right. And I don't know the secret to that yet. I don't know the secret to that one yet, but except for knowing that as long as we do what we know is best and
Yeah.
we faith, I live by faith. I have
Yeah.
to, and but I agree with you 100%. I mean, if you can I lay my head down at night knowing that what I did during that day was morally right and what I know was the best thing for not only me, but anybody else that's around me.
Absolutely. So if anyone wants to pick up your book, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
They can go to KathleenMiner.com or hopefulhandbags.org. Hopeful is with two L's, like full of hope,
Yeah.
because the book, all the proceeds to the book go back to helping domestic abuse survivors and their children. But the book wasn't even written for domestic abuse survivors.
Yeah.
It was starting to be put together when I was in my early 20s, when I was having my own self-perception issues.
Yeah.
So it's for everybody. But yeah, all the information is available on there.
Okay, Kathleen, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.